And now, the interview portion of the show begins. This young man has actually been on the show once before, so I don't know how I talked him back into coming again. But he's not only a state senator here in this lovely state of Illinois, but he's also running for governor. He's a Democratic candidate for governor of the state of Illinois. Will you please welcome Daniel Biss to the stage? Daniel. I think, so we'll both use mics. And that one's for you.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, have a seat. Or you can sit behind the desk if you want. It's just more traditional. No, you know what? It's just, I don't like to break habit. So let's just...
What do you guys think? All right, fine. Never mind. It looks uncomfortable. I'm sorry. Pretend that didn't happen.
Look, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me back.
It's not like you're not busy.
It's not like I'm not busy. It
Double
is like
negative.
I am busy, actually.
Right, exactly. See?
But
I'm crushing this
it's
interview.
You and me both, my friend. You and me both.
So what's my first question? We mentioned in the monologue, actually, we have a budget now.
We do.
So, like as a state senator, you're done, right? I mean, it's photo ops and like giant ribbons and giant scissors now, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of time spent making confetti for the parades.
Right.
And then a lot of trophy design as well.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot to do.
Everyone patting each other on the back in Springfield.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not a done deal, is it?
I mean, listen, this is like an exercise in taking the bar and lowering it so that it's physically on the floor.
Oh my.
And then tripping over it as you walk past it.
Oh dear.
Right? So we didn't have a budget for 2 years.
2?
2 years and 6 days, if you're counting. And
I was, absolutely.
me too, minute by minute. And so during this time, we get to the place where schools aren't going to open, community colleges and universities are at the risk of shutting their doors. We're shuttering mental health facilities. People are losing health care. We're racking up an additional $11 million of debt a day. The state's about to become the first state in history to go into junk bond status. And you're right.
No, it's not good. That's bad.
I mean, it's a record, which, again, if you're just about getting trophies.
Right,
Anyways,
Guinness book-wise, but anyway.
But the point is that, so we put a stop to that, which is awesome.
It is good.
And so, until Bruce Rauner became governor, the state was, in pretty bad shape. And then while he was governor for the last 2.5 years, he kind of burnt it to the ground.
The backlog increased 200%? Under Governor Rauner?
Yeah, that's right. So up to now $15 billion of unpaid bills. And now what we've done is we've just left it at that worst condition. We're not paying down the debt. We're not investing for real in higher education or schools or early childhood education or human services. We're not transforming our tax code, which stinks. We're not doing any of the big stuff we ought to have been doing 20 years ago. We've just said, okay, we're going to stop harming services and people unnecessarily even more. And that's definitely a crucial first step, but all kidding aside, if you view that as the end point and the cause for celebration, that's a crime and a tragedy.
That's not good, because there's way more that we could be doing. I mean, you kind of just said something interesting there, which is...
Surprising, I know.
Well, wow. I mean, join the club. We should get jackets, because I have writers. You should get writers. It's so much easier. Honest to God. You said something interesting, which is these problems started 20 years ago. All people here, if they do watch the news in Illinois, which most of them have stopped, is mudslinging, right? The Republicans say the Democrats have been kicking this can down the road forever. The Democrats say it's way worse under the Republicans. There are structural issues at play, like things have happened in the past, but blaming things on party doesn't seem to be fixing anything. Does that make sense?
Well, let's start here. Nothing's getting fixed. And if you have politicians who are focused on making sure that someone else gets the blame, instead of figuring out how to actually do something, you're going to wind up where we wound up. And the truth is there are things in Illinois government that are weird and bizarre and unlike most states and are terrible. We're one of 4 states that has a flat tax provision in our Constitution. So we are not allowed to ask someone making $20 million a year to pay a higher tax rate than someone making $20,000 a year. Even though for the last 2 generations, since that dumb thing got put in our Constitution in 1970, all the new money in our economy has gone where? To the top. So the money's gone up there. We're not able to access it. And therefore we have an unfair tax system and a government that's broke. We should fix that. We have the worst school funding system in the country, more unjust, more unfair, more property tax reliant, more vicious to poor children. We should fix that. These things are doable, but we're choosing instead to yell at each other and not actually do anything constructive.
It's a lot easier just to yell, though, I got to say. But I mean, I am hearing a lot out there.
Eventually you lose your voice.
There's a, huh? What? I'm hearing a lot from other candidates for the governorship. A lot of that mudslinging. A lot of, we have to stop Browner, we have to stop Trump, we have to stop this, stop that, stop this. And I'm not hearing a lot of, here's what we should do. Here's a plan to fix this. Here's a way to stop this problem that's systemic. Do you got any of those on you by chance? Could you?
Some solutions?
Yeah, that'd be
Just a couple.
awesome. That's better than I've heard most of. Yes, please.
I mean, so besides the things I just mentioned, which is have a fair tax system that asks people who can afford to pay to finally pay their share and use that money to fund schools properly across Illinois, not just in a couple neighborhoods, let's do a few more things. Let's raise wages. We should have a $15 minimum wage in Illinois.
Snap.
Yeah, there was a whole series of people snapping. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
No, this is good. This is a good thing.
Right. Let's pass campaign finance reform, so instead of billionaires buying elections, we have all of us by small contributions able to fund campaigns that work for the rest of the state of Illinois.
Sounds good to me.
Let's fund our universities and community colleges properly so tuition becomes free. Let's make healthcare universally available. These are things that can be done, and other states are doing them, and we're sitting around fighting instead of actually accomplishing something useful that would lift up people across Illinois.
Ooh.
Legalize
oh my.
college?
Ooh, there are. Look, I agree with there are those structural. College should be legal. That's absolutely. I agree with that. But there are other
Also
ways.
marijuana.
Oh, well, I think you got some ears now. Some people perked up. Good morning. Hello. Thanks for joining us. There are plenty of revenue streams, aren't there? Plenty of ways to raise money for the state of Illinois. I mentioned earlier that we raised the taxes. I mean, we had to do that, right? The T word is something that a lot of candidates just do not want to talk about, but it turns out there's only a limited way to raise money for a state, right?
Listen, I voted for it, and maybe it's politically stupid for a guy running for governor to vote for a bill that increases income taxes on everybody, but I felt we had no choice, and I wasn't going to burn the state to the ground for the sake of making some dumb political point. But.
Go ahead.
Okay. Let's not pretend we've got the right tax system in Illinois. Let's not pretend this is the right policy for Illinois or the best way forward. Let's be honest about the fact that we have a more regressive tax system that unfairly burdens the poor, unfairly burdens the middle class, lets the richest residents off the hook than almost any other state. We're like the fourth or fifth most regressive, depending on how you measure it. So part of it is to have an income tax that's fair, but part of it is to do other creative things that gets the money where the money is instead of going after it where it isn't. So, for example, we could put a small tax on trades at the Board of Trade and the Mercantile Exchange, a very small percentage tax, and bring in billions of dollars for the state without making any middle-class people pay a dime.
They can't afford that over at the Board of Trade.
It's hard for them, but, we can send them thank you notes.
Okay.
Also, there is something called the carried interest loophole, which is a preposterous and corrupt tax loophole on the federal level that allows hedge fund and private equity billionaires, stay with me here, to pay 20% less in tax for literally no reason. They just reclassify their income as though it were not income, and they get a 20% tax cut because of whose campaign they contributed to 6 months before.
Ooh.
What?
Ooh. I said ooh.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I passed a bill out of the Senate. This is the first house in any state legislature in the country that says, dude, the federal government is not going to close that loophole, even though in the 2016 campaign, not only Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, but Donald Trump and Jeb Bush all campaigned on closing that loophole. We know that the Goldman Sachs cabinet's not going to do it, so states should close that loophole and take the money to plug holes in state budgets. And if we do that, it's not only asking people to just pay the same income tax rate anybody else pays in the first place, it's genuinely making our tax code fairer. So there are ways to get the money to run a government that works for the rest of us if we're willing to be creative and bold and not frightened of the people who ordinarily pay for campaigns. That's what Illinois needs, and we need it now.
I love it. You say don't ordinarily pay for campaigns. Does that mean that you have maybe something else in mind, a different way of doing things?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is an unusual election, right? So we've got this billionaire governor, Bruce Rauner, who bought the election with tens of millions of dollars of his own money. And then in December of last year, he put another $15 million from his personal bank account into his campaign fund, $50 million. And then Democrats started running for governor too, which is a good thing. And then in March, one of those Democrats, Chris Kennedy, put $250,000 of his money into his campaign fund. And then in April, another one of the Democrats, J.B. Pritzker, put $7 million of his money into his campaign fund. And that happened late on a Friday afternoon, and I went home and I had this really depressing weekend when I talked with my wife, Karen, about like, what does this mean? I mean, seriously, what does this mean? Can we withstand it? Should we stay in? Is there a path forward? But if there isn't, doesn't that mean we're having an auction and not an election? And what does that mean for the future of the Democratic Party? What does that mean for the future of our own community, our own family? And we decided it's too important, and we're in. And we're in. And so on Monday, I decided I'm in too, and so I wrote my campaign a $25 check.
Oh my God.
I know, it was a hard decision. It was a hard decision, but
Did you talk to your wife about this?
We kind of argued back and forth,
okay.
But eventually we came to a consensus.
That's good.
But I didn't stop there. I took a picture of the check and I put the picture on Facebook. And the next thing I know, there's $25 contributions coming in from all over the state of Illinois, from every corner of the state, from people who'd never met me before, probably didn't know my positions on most of the issues, but they just feel in their bones what we feel in our bones, that government's not working for the rest of us. And that's because of who pays for the campaigns and therefore who the people in office listen to. And if we want a government for us, we've got to have a campaign that we own, and that's what I'm trying to do here in Illinois.
I agree with that. Many snaps in return to you, sir. Do you think these people are going to show up on voting day? We got some time until the primaries, so we got a lot of time here.
Yeah.
Is the message getting out? Are people receiving it? Are there enough people in the state to make that happen feasibly in the amount of time that we have?
I think the answer is yes. I mean, I'm working hard on being everywhere. It's early yet. It's July, and so the election's not till March. And by the way, the general election's in November after that, all many, many, many months from now. But we're building and building and building. What I'm doing is not just raising money online. I'm traveling to every corner of the state. I'm meeting with people, and we're having organizing meetings where we say to people, listen, we're not going to be able to hire a full-time staffer in your community, so we want you to take the keys, and you're going to be in charge of the campaign. And people across Illinois are then, reserving a room in the local library or a room in the back of the coffee shop and inviting all their friends and their neighbors, and we're helping bring folks into the room, and they're organizing themselves, yes, to help me get elected, but also to help make sure that I'm listening to the needs of that community. We're going to have a campaign that's rooted in what people need in every neighborhood in the state of Illinois. I believe that's going to change how politics and government work in Illinois.
I like the sound of that, I got to say. I have to wrap it up. So I want to ask, do you think schools are not going to open in the fall? Are schools going to open in the fall? You're working in Springfield. Right now, something is up in the air in terms of school funding. We have a budget, and yet there are so many questions to be answered. I mean, this is a real possibility.
Yeah, it's scary and terrible. So here's the deal. The budget passed, and it's got school funding in it, but it's got this booby trap in it, too, that says that the school funding only gets released if it's done according to what's called an evidence-based model, which is not what the current law is, because we don't use evidence to decide how much money to send to schools.
Evidence is so, it's,
Hi, Illinois.
Right.
But there's a bill on the governor's desk that sets up an evidence-based model. It's called Senate Bill 1. It doesn't do nearly all that we should do to fix our school funding formula in the state of Illinois, but it is definitely a step forward. And the governor has said he's going to veto it, and in fact, his Secretary of Education, this is true, said that he was going to veto it because it does 90% of what he wants. He's very bad at democracy.
90%. I mean, that's not 100. I'm just saying.
Right. No, it's not 100.
He's a businessman. He's negotiating. This is negotiation.
He's one of the great subtractors. It's true. So it's not 100%. He did not write every punctuation mark in that bill all by his lonesome, and so he's threatened to veto it. If he vetoes that bill and nothing is passed in its place, then the school dollars in the budget will not be released, and schools will literally not open. It would be a crime. I believe schools will open. My guess is that he will veto that bill, though I hope he will rethink that inane position, as he's rethought a variety of other positions in the past, so who knows, he can't be trusted. That could be good news in this case. But if he does veto that bill, my guess is that in typical Springfield fashion, at the 11th hour when the emergency is breathing down our neck and schools are threatening not to open tomorrow, we're going to rush there and do something. And we'll find some agreement, and it won't be the right thing, it won't be the best thing, but it'll be good enough to keep the schools open. That's great in the sense that it's better than the schools not being open, but we can do better than that. We have to do better than that.
Perhaps another, yes. So maybe another veto override, like we saw with the initial budget vote.
I hope so, and I'm pretty confident that we have the votes in the Senate to override that veto. In the House, it's touch and go. They don't have enough Democrats, so they need Republicans to cooperate to override a veto, and it was really an unusual thing when that happened on July 6th, and so we'll see if they can maintain that coalition, willing to stand up to the governor, who, let's be honest, is a bully who puts tens of millions of dollars in a campaign fund and then threatens people explicitly if they're Republicans who are willing to vote their conscience or their district as opposed to his directions.
That's, again, he's a businessman. He's negotiating. Did you read The Art of the Deal?
I've totally read essays by the guy who co-wrote The Art of the Deal. Does that count for something?
Touche. I asked you on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, what do you think we should be all paying attention to besides the budget? And you said progressive taxing in the state of Illinois. Do you stand by that? Do you have another issue that you think people should pay close attention to as we near the primaries a little more?
Well, I definitely stand by that I think that if we want to have the Illinois that we know is possible, we've got to change our tax system. And here's the deal. They want us to think that we're broke. And, dude, go downtown Chicago on a sunny day and look up in the air and tell me we're broke. Look at the hedge funds and the private equity firms and the Board of Trade and the Mercantile Exchange. Look at the big fancy law firms and the advertising companies and tell me we're broke. It's just wrong. We're one of the richest states there is. We have the resources we need. It's about choices. It's about who is making our decisions. If we have a tax code written by the rich, for the rich, we're not going to get the money where it is. If we revise our tax code so it's fair and reasonable and sane, we will have the resources we need to have a government that works for the rest of us. That's what we got to be paying attention to.
Seems legit. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for repeat guest, Senator Daniel Biss.
Thank you very much.
State Senator Daniel Biss. Pulled that one out of his back pocket. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for being here. And now, a little bit about net neutrality. You may have noticed earlier when I asked you, do you know what net neutrality is? Does anyone know what it is?